a phantom who haunted the interstates, preying on vulnerable women and leaving a trail of bodies in his wake. Who was Dr. No? How did he evade capture? And why does his shadow still loom over the Midwest? Buckle up, because this is a story of tragedy, mystery, and a hunt that has spanned decades. Welcome to the Basement Files, the podcast that dives into the darkest corners of true crime, where mysteries linger and justice remains elusive. I'm your host, Ginger, and today we're unraveling one of Ohio's most chilling unsolved cases, the serial killer known as Dr. No, also known as the Ohio Prostitute Killer. I had heard of the Ohio Prostitute Killer before, but I never looked super deep into it until I started researching the Pine Creek Road mystery in early May. If you watched that episode, I am so sorry. It was a hot mess. There is absolutely no news there. And if you didn't watch that episode, it's about a tip that was given regarding possible human remains in or around a well on Pine Creek Road in Scioto County, Ohio, near the South Webster area. That's not very far from US 23, where Dr. No drove, or at least he drove part of it. He was more on the northern side of it. That's where his crimes took place. But before we dive in, I just want to remind you to like, comment, share. If you watch on YouTube, you can see the photos and other media. In the show notes, I've included a link to my book, Deliver Us from Evil. And if you watch on YouTube, you will get a glimpse of the covers of two more that are coming out this year. The first one is Echoes of Extinction, and the second one is Silenced Voices, the Sylvia and Jenny Likens Untold Stories. It's a supplement to the very first Basement File episodes about the Sylvia Likens case. And I also want you to check out the website at www.thebasementfiles.info, where you can submit show ideas and even apply to be a guest. And if you want to buy me a coffee to keep this podcast free, the link is in the show notes. I also want to give a shout out to my son Eric's teachers, Mrs. Landit and Miss Mackenzie Evans. From what I understand, they like to watch this podcast or listen. So I really appreciate that, and I wanted to give you that shout out. But with that said, let's do this. It's April 24th, 1981 in rural Miami County, Ohio. A passerby spots something in a ditch along Greenlee Road near US Route 23. It's a young woman, lifeless, wearing a distinctive buckskin poncho. She's been strangled, her head and neck battered. For decades, she's known only as the Buckskin Girl. It's not until 2018 that DNA testing reveals her name, Marcia King, 21 years old from Little Rock, Arkansas. Marcia is the first known victim of a killer who would terrorize Ohio's highways for nearly a decade, a killer the police would come to know as Dr. No. Dr. No is believed to have killed at least 9 women and girls between 1981 and 1990, with possible victims in New York, Illinois, and Pennsylvania, in addition to Ohio. His targets, they were prostitutes working the truck stops and rest areas along Interstate 71, which is a major artery running through Ohio. These women were vulnerable, often transient, moving between cities. Their disappearances were unnoticed for weeks or even years because of their lifestyles. But you've met Marcia King, so let's go ahead and meet the rest of the girls. Shirley Dean Taylor, 23, found in October 1985 near Interstate 70 in Clark County, Ohio. Strangled, her body dumped in a rural spot close to the truck stops where she worked. Then there's Jane Marjorie Campbell, 29, discovered in August 1986 in Madison County, Ohio, along Interstate 71. She'd been bound, tortured, and strangled. April Barnett, 23, met a similar fate in September 1987 in Licking County, Ohio. Phyllis Murphy, 28, was found in November 1990 in Franklin County, and there are others, unidentified women known only as Jane Does. their bodies left in ditches and fields near highways like Interstate 270 and U.S. Route 23. These women shared a tragic connection. They worked in high-risk environments, soliciting clients at truck stops, often communicating via CB radio, and that's where Dr. No comes in. The name Dr. No wasn't just a catchy moniker. It came from the killer himself. Ohio State Highway Patrol Detective Mark Reynolds said in an interview, quote, "We started hearing about this CB handle, Dr. No, from other working girls at the truck stops. They'd say, 'Yeah, I heard a guy on the radio calling himself Dr. No looking for a date.' Then a girl would go missing and we'd find her body a few days later. It was chilling." You see, Reynolds worked the case in the late 1980s. The CB radio was the killer's hunting ground. Truck stops along Interstate 71 were buzzing with drivers, sex workers, and drifters, all connected by the crackle of the CB radio. Dr. No, investigators believe, was likely a truck driver using the alias to lure women into his cab or nearby location, but he didn't stop at one handle. Witnesses also reported hearing Stargazer and Dragon on the airwaves. They were aliases tied to the same pattern of disappearances. So why did police think that these aliases, Dr. No, Stargazer, and Dragon, belonged to the same killer? It comes down to patterns. The victims were all prostitutes, killed in the same way. They were strangled, often with signs of brutal assault. Their bodies were dumped in rural areas, always near major highways. Interstate 71, Interstate 70, U.S. Route 23. Those are the three highways where bodies would be found. The killing happened in a very tight geographic cluster, mostly in Ohio counties like Miami, Clark, Madison, Franklin, and Licking. And the timeline, 1981 to 1990, lined up perfectly. Truck drivers usually used multiple CB handles to stay anonymous, and FBI's behavioral analysis or an analyst pegged the killer as a mobile predator, someone who could blend into the transient world of long-haul trucking. But let's talk about his MO. Dr. No was methodical. He'd cruise truck stops, likely using his CB radio to connect with women, offering cash or a ride, maybe. Once he had a victim alone, he'd strike really fast. Strangulation was his signature method of murdering his victims. He'd either do it manually or with a ligature of some sort. He sometimes paired the act with head or neck trauma. Some victims, like Jane Campbell, showed signs of being bound, tortured. It just gave a glimpse into Dr. No's cruelty. Then he dumped the body in a rural spot, often a ditch or a field, just off the highway. And these locations, they were very remote. That's kind of why, when I was talking about the Pine Creek Road mystery, that I brought up Dr. No, because his dumping locations were rural and not far from highways, although the Pine Creek Road area is a bit off of US 23, and it's the southern part of US 23 versus the northern part where he's known to have committed these acts. But they were accessible locations, and they were perfect for a quick getaway. Dr. Sarah Bennett, a former FBI profiler who consulted on the case, said the dumping sites tell us a lot. They're not random. He knew these roads. These were back routes that he knew. He was comfortable driving a rig through Ohio's countryside, and he picked spots where he wouldn't be seen. That's someone who's planned this. That is someone who's done this before. The precision of Dr. No's methods made him elusive. No fingerprints, no DNA, at least not with the tech available in the 1980s, and we know that it was nothing compared to what we have now. And there was the transient nature of his victims, and that meant that there were many were not reported missing right away, which gave him a head start. And because women that are transient in this way are typically not reported as missing when they disappear, because that may be what they do, he could have more victims. It's suspected that he does. Let's zoom in on the victims to understand the human toll. Now, if you are watching on YouTube, you saw photos of Marcia and Shirley. Unfortunately, I don't have photos of the others, especially the Jane Does. But first, I'll go ahead and recap Marcia King, the buckskin girl. Marcia was 21, a runaway from Arkansas, hitchhiking or working truck stops when she crossed paths with Dr. No on April 24, 1981, which is when her body was found in Miami County, Ohio, near U.S. Route 23. She'd been strangled, her body left in a ditch. For 37 years, she was a Jane Doe. Her buckskin poncho was the only clue to her identity. In 2018, the DNA Doe Project gave her name back, but her last day remains a mystery. Was she at a truck stop? Answering a CB call? Did she trust the wrong stranger? That's something that we will never know. And then we've got Shirley Dean Taylor, found in October 1985 in Clark County, Ohio, near Interstate 70. Shirley was a sex worker, known to work the truck stop circuit, and like Marcia, she was strangled, her body discarded in a rural area, and her final day likely involved a routine transaction, maybe a CB radio call from a trucker calling himself Dr. No. There were no witnesses, so there were none to come forward, and her transient life meant her disappearance didn't raise alarms until it was too late. Then we have Jane Marjorie Campbell. She was just 29 years old, and she was found August 1986 in a ditch near Interstate 71 in Madison County, Ohio. She was strangled with evidence of being bound and tortured, known to work as a prostitute at truck stops. It's hard to tell what her last day was like. All we know is that she answered a call, maybe a CB call. Maybe it was a face-to-face conversation. Nonetheless, she was at Dr. No's primary hunting ground, either a rest area or a truck stop. She was likely active in Madison County that day or a nearby area, which ended up leading to her death in August 1986. And it's sad. And I know some people may not have any kind of sympathy whatsoever for these women because of what they did, but there are so many different reasons why women like these do what they do. And those of us that have never been there, we can't understand that at all. And it's sad that there's like no witnesses in any of these cases. They weren't paid attention to by really anybody, other than the people that they were there to appeal to. You know, the truck drivers and the drifters and whoever else was at these rest areas and truck stops looking for what they had to offer. And, you know, they were just trying to live. They were doing the best that they could. And it's just all around sad. But anyway, Jane Campbell's body was found in a ditch near Interstate 71 in Madison County. And just like all of Dr. No's victims, she was found in a rural area, close proximity to a highway, and they say that her body was discarded of very quickly. The Madison County Sheriff's Office linked Jane's murder to Dr. No due to the strangulation, the victim profile, and the location. And her transient lifestyle meant there were very few leads, as I was saying, about lack of witnesses, that they just kind of blended into the background. And so there are no specific accounts of what her last moments were. Nothing. But anyway, we have April Barnett, 23 years old, very young. She was found September 1987 near a truck stop in Licking County along Interstate 71. She was strangled, as she was known to frequent truck stops as a sex worker just like the others. She was frequenting the truck stops in Licking County, Ohio, sorry about that, along Interstate 71, and September 1987, she became a victim of Dr. No. She may have used a CB radio to communicate. Again, that was a common practice for arranging transactions. Dr. No probably contacted her using one of his aliases. And while there are no witness accounts, she most likely met Dr. No at a truck stop or rest area where he isolated her, possibly in his vehicle. Her death by strangulation aligns with the killer's quick, violent method, suggesting a rapid attack after luring her away from the truck stop. And so her body was found near that truck stop on I-71 in a rural area, typical of Dr. No's disposal sites. The Licking County Sheriff's Office connected April's murder to Dr. No based on the method, location, and her occupation. The lack of specific witnesses or immediate missing person reports really hindered the early investigation, which is typical of the Dr. No case challenges. Our third one is Phyllis Murphy, 28, still very young, found in November 1990 near a rest area along I-71 in Franklin County, Ohio. She was strangled and, like the others, worked as a prostitute and was last seen at a truck stop. She met Dr. No probably by CB radio, maybe face-to-face, just like the others. We don't know. CB, once again, was a common method in which clients were obtained by these women. And her body was found near a rest area along I-71. Again, like Dr. No's dumping grounds. And the proximity to the rest area, the highway's proximity, indicates she was killed nearby and her body discarded to avoid detection. The Franklin County Sheriff's Office and the Ohio State Highway Patrol Task Force linked Phyllis's murder to Dr. No due to the strangulation, location, and once again, victim profile. As one of the last known victims, her case marked the end of Dr. No's documented Ohio spree, though no arrests ever followed, as we know. And that's something because in my research, she truly is the very last one that is known. He could have kept going in other states. As I said earlier, Pennsylvania, New York, he's been to other places or suspected to be in other places based on how victims in these states were killed, where their bodies were left, the proximity to highways, truck stops, rest areas. You get the point. But anyway, we have a number of Jane Does also. We have a Franklin County Jane Doe. She was estimated to be between 20 and 30 years old, and she was found in June 1987 near Interstate 270. She was strangled, believed to be a prostitute, due to the location and pattern, and she remains unidentified. So, she was most likely at a rest area or truck stop, doing the CB thing, or just going truck to truck, knocking on the window, trying to get a ride, cash, whatever the intention was. No witness accounts, which explains exactly why we don't know who she is, because there's no witnesses. Her death by strangulation completely aligns with the killer's method, suggesting it was a quick and violent attack. And, again, a rural area. I know I sound like a broken record because I keep talking about these rural areas where the bodies were left and close to a highway and near a truck stop or near, a rest area, because he did the same thing over and over and over. And it does make you wonder, how in the heck did this guy not get caught? I mean, goodness gracious. We've got a Licking County Jane Doe. She was estimated to be between 25 and 35 years old, and she was found in April 1988. And her body was found in a wooded area near I-71 in Licking County, Ohio. It's funny because my husband just drove home from Licking County, Ohio today from a work trip. But anyway, she was strangled. She was suspected to be a prostitute based on the location and the killer's pattern. The location being near a truck stop or near a rest area. She was likely, again, a sex worker working along Interstate 71. And there, of course, no witnesses. She wouldn't be a Jane Doe if there was, or maybe she'd still be a Jane Doe. I don't know. Just because somebody sees something doesn't mean they know their name. But nobody ever came forward saying that they saw a single thing. But this, her strangulation indicated that this was a rapid attack, consistent with Dr. No's MO. And the wooded location where her body was found suggests an attempt to conceal her body, though it remained easily accessible from the highway. The Licking County Sheriff's Office connected this Jane Doe to Dr. No because of the method, location, and victim profile, and her unidentified status underscores the difficulty of this case with no reported progress or identification. And I do pray, I hope that someday these women are identified, because they've got family somewhere. They came from somewhere, but because of their lifestyles, their family probably did not report them missing. If they frequently ran away, they're not going to report them missing, usually. But anyhow, we have a Madison County Jane Doe. And she was between 18 and 25, found in May 1986. And she was found in a field near Interstate 71, there in Madison County, Ohio. And she was likely a prostitute. And her case was consistent with Dr. No's victim profile. She, again, no witness accounts, none whatsoever, but her body was found in a field near Interstate 71 in Madison County, consistent with Dr. No's dumping sites. And that's the thing, is he never dumped a body in the same spot. They were always different areas. He was smart. He knew that if he went after prostitutes that people were most likely not looking for, that he would not get caught. He knew it. He still went to these rest areas and these truck stops, and his existence was known, but he was never caught. That's what blows my mind. Well, anyway, Clark County had a Jane Doe. But thing is about her that's different is that she's a possible victim, because her profile's a little different. She was estimated to be 15 to 20 years old. She was found in 1988 near Interstate 70 in Clark County, Ohio. And she was strangled, but considered a possible Dr. No victim due to the location and method, though less definitively linked. She was most likely a runaway, but again, there is nothing that is 100% linking her to Dr. No, and that's interesting. But she was isolated, strangled. The strangulation aligns with his method, but the lack of definitive ties to this typical victim profile leaves some doubt. Her body was found near Interstate 70 in Clark County in a rural area similar to Dr. No's dumping sites. The location suggests a nearby killing and disposal consistent with his pattern. However, the Clark County Sheriff's Office considered this Jane Doe a possible Dr. No victim due to the strangulation and location, but the connection is weaker than with the other cases. Her unidentified status and younger age add a whole lot of uncertainty with no reported identification progress whatsoever. And I would hope that there would be some inkling of who she would be because of her age. And usually if somebody's like 15 years old or whatnot, they're going to be reported missing by somebody. But how many 15-year-olds were reported missing around that time? It could have been any of them. But anyhow, the additional suspected victims in New York, Illinois, and Pennsylvania all align with his methods. They involved prostitutes that were found strangled near major interstates, dumped in rural areas, matching Dr. No's MO. These cases were linked to Dr. No by the FBI and regional task forces based on the victim profiles, method, and locations. The lack of specific victim details reflects the transient nature of the victims and limited interstate coordination in the 1980s. There were a lot of problems happening in the 1980s when it came to investigations. we didn't have the DNA technology that we have now. We didn't have the forensic, other types of forensic technology that we have now. It made things hard. And because we have those things now, if you listen to my Herb Ballmeister episode, then it kind of illustrates the differences between technology now and what existed then. Because he had all kinds of victims. There were all sorts of people buried on his property. Their remains were found. And as of this past January 2025, they were still identifying the remains of the people that were found in his property. It's a long process, but we have the technology now to do it. So the investigation into Dr. No was massive for its time. In the late 1980s, the Ohio State Highway Patrol formed a task force with local sheriffs and the FBI. They interviewed truckers, sex workers, and CB radio users, chasing leads on the mysterious Dr. No. A 1991 Columbus Dispatch investigation brought the case to public attention, detailing the aliases and the killer's highway haunts. But the trail went cold. No suspect was ever named, no arrests made. The transient world of trucking, with its endless flow of faces, was the perfect cover. So who was Dr. No? The profile is chilling. A truck driver, likely in his 30s or 40s during the 1980s, familiar with Ohio's highways and comfortable with the CB radio subculture. He was cunning, blending into the transient world of truck stops. Some speculate he stopped killing after 1990. Maybe he died or was incarcerated for another crime. Others wonder if he's still out there, an old man now, his secrets buried. But I guess we'll never know. But going back to Detective Reynolds, he said, "I still think about those women, those Jane Does. We owe them justice. Someone out there knows something, maybe a trucker who heard Dr. No on the radio, or a witness who saw something odd. It's not too late." The case remains open, with law enforcement still hoping for a break. Maybe through DNA, like Marcia King's identification, or a tip from someone who remembers the CB chatter of the 80s. If you have information, contact the Ohio State Highway Patrol or your local FBI office. Dr. No is a ghost, a killer who used the highways as his hunting ground and vanished into the night. His victims, Marcia, Shirley, Jane, and the others, deserve to be remembered, not as statistics or prostitutes, but as women with lives, dreams, and stories that were cut too short. And as we drive these interstates today, their shadows linger, a reminder of the evil that once prowled the open road. With that said, thank you for joining me on the Basement Files. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, subscribe. You definitely want to subscribe because next week I'm going to be diving into another unsolved mystery from America's Heartland. And I know you're wondering what that is, but you've got to subscribe. You can follow on Facebook or Instagram. And you can also visit www.thebasementfiles.info, where you'll be able to get more info on this podcast. And you can also fill out a form suggesting episodes. If you want to become a guest, you can fill out that form. You don't have to come here to be a guest. We can do it over Zoom or do it some other way. You can do it right from the comfort of your home. So, with that said, I will see you next week. Be good and God bless.